Afternoon all. My good friend Natalia Pogonina, a Russian WGM, sent me this very interesting game from the Russian Team Championship earlier in this year, 8th of April 2013. She was playing white against Gulnar Mammadova. Okay, she kicked off with e4 and Mammadova played the French defence e6, and we saw d4, d5, and now the Tarrasch variation, knight d2. So this avoids the bishop pinning the knight on knight c3, which would be the winner variation. And now black plays knight c6. I myself have played knight c6, the Gulnar variation. It's a recommendation in Watson's Dangerous Weapons in the French. It can be a very useful surprise weapon and changes the strategic emphasis. Often, black is often playing to undermine a pawn on e5 with f6, the head of the chain, rather than what we consider the exploitable base with c5. So blocking in that c pawn changes the nature of the pawn breaks and the undermining. So we see knight gf3 from Natalia, and now after knight f6, e5, knight goes to d7. And here Natalia just plays knight b3, strengthening d4. And okay, it might seem f6 could be an idea, but black has to be very careful in these kind of positions, that there isn't some nasty tactic going on. For example, bishop d3 and knight g5 could be dangerous. Black actually wasn't tempted to play f6 here, but rather play a5, which is dual purpose, not just to try and chase away the knight, but after a4 we see a second purpose, b6, to try and trade off this bishop for this one. And usually French defence players are keen on doing this, but sometimes it does loosen the position in terms of the light squares, making, for example, c4 and cd a bit more effective if this bad bishop wasn't cementing the position so much. We see actually c3 here, just inviting bishop a6. Now Natalia just takes that in one go. So c3 was also quite efficient because this bishop wasn't moved twice. Now just taking immediately on a6. And now a very interesting strategy here. Instead of a routine castling move, white plays actually h4. So there's a couple of ideas, either to support a potentially dangerous movement of a piece to g5, or alternatively, after h6, now another idea, just to play h5, just putting restraints on these pawns. It also means this rook can come into the game like this, or potentially with h4, quite creatively into the game to put pressure on g7. We see bishop e7, and now after rook h3 we see that rook being quite dangerous here. Rook g3, so the bishop just drops back. Seems a bit of a waste of time, and as if it's possible to punish back, but not really. It's a closed position in the French still. It's quite closed. Black has got rid of the more dangerous light square bishop, and the queen on b8 is seemingly preparing b5, which might be at the cost of slightly weakening a5. But we see after queen e2 attacking the rook, it goes to a7. After king f1, black logically prepares for b5, even though it can be a bit double-edged here for weakening the a5 pawn. We see in response king g1, and now b5 is played. After a takes, rook takes. Okay, the knight's attacked, it moves back, and after knight e7, it looks as though black, is playing very aggressively, now going to undermine like this, or maybe even use knight f5. The problem with knight f5s here is that maybe white can just play rook h3 and then g4 just to kick that knight. There's no options for black to play h5 with this pawn on h5, so it's an easy target with g4 here. So black is not even tempted for knight f5. Just in this position, well, it's white's turn anyway now. After b3, rather here, there's an option now for knight f5. Black actually just plays c5. b3 kind of tied down this pawn, fixing this pawn. And you might think, well, how can we get access to this pawn here on a5 anyway? But we mentioned before that this light square bishop exchange might weaken black on the light squares, making c4 a bit more effective. And it's at this moment that c4 is played. Rook b7, And now the king in the centre, it looks logical to try and open up the position, to change the character of the position. And we see now d takes c5, even though seemingly inviting huge pressure on b3. Okay. And you might also think, hold on a sec, isn't rook takes a5 also an option? Well, the thing is, black's dangerously poised for an entry point on b1 in some variations. Actually, let's have a quick look here why rook takes a5 was not possible. Just a very quick look. Rook takes a5. Maybe it is possible. Okay, it might actually be technically possible here. Okay, but we see instead d takes c5, knight takes c5, and now knight d4 protecting b3. And again, a5 is loose anyway. It's not going anywhere. Or rather, it tries to do something though now with a4. So black is losing a pawn. B takes a4. And now this knight e4, trying to generate some tactics, but with the king in the centre, this is likely to backfire. These pieces not developed. So we see after knight takes e4, the idea is a temporary piece sack with queen takes e5. So if this knight moves, then there's queen takes a1. So this position here wouldn't be that hot for white, even though it does seem there's a dangerous check, but this pin is nasty. The rook seems a bit misplaced. So Natalia actually plays in this position after queen takes e5. She plays calmly c takes d5. And now black keeps being a piece down with knight takes d5. Okay, so this looks like a nasty pin. How can that piece actually be defended? It's not easy to keep defense of both knights here. So bishop e3, we just take on e4. For example, queen c4, queen e4 might be possible. It looks as though queen c8 is really dangerous. Let's actually this is the move though. The move played is queen c4 because queen c8 is really dangerous here. So there's no queen takes e4. So white now is actually a piece up here in this position. Black plays rook c7. We see check. After king d8, now winning an exchange. So a piece up and then an exchange up. But what about this rook? Natalia has sacrificed this rook. So it's actually equal now, but it's the quality of the attack now which is really strong. After knight d6, with very, very significant threats now, like knight takes f7 winning a rook, for example. So black actually took this after check, king c8, check. We now see rook b3, so menacingly threatening rook b8 now. King e7, and we get a king chase, check, check. Now rook takes f7, which introduces now f4 check as well. So rook b8, king h2, unpinning the bishop, so that's ready for action. Rook b4, as though rook h4 might be useful, but maybe not. In any case, g3 is played in any case, just safeguarding against things like that. Queen takes a4, rook takes g7, queen d1, threatening queen takes h5 check. King steps out there, offering the h5 pawn, which is taken. And now we see bishop d2, threatening all sorts of things. Using the pin, for example, the rook has to move as well. It moves, pardon me, it moves after bishop d2, rook b8. We see check, and this is winning now material. The king is being chased to f5 whatever happens. If king e4, queen d4 or worse is going to happen to black. So it looks pretty grim. After king f5, it's as good as over now after g4 check, winning the black queen for a rook. Black played on a few moves though. Takes here bishop e5, attacking the rook. Check, check from black, from the rook. Okay, this is just very, very dangerous. There's no fortress here. After bishop g3 now, check, King g5. Black's falling to bits. This position here, rook against queen, has not much hope here. After king g3 in this particular position. After rook f6, f4 check. And here, black resigned. Black will be getting mated. King h5, queen g4, king g6 doesn't look particularly appetizing either. Let's have a quick check, just in case there's a quick mate there. On king g6, check. King f3 here apparently, and that forces a mate in any case. Okay, so an interesting game, and it shows the Gulnar variation, very interesting variation, but showing how white can play to blast black in the centre with c4 once black exchanges the light squared bishop. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much. By the way, I should note, Natalia actually got a huge rating performance from this team tournament. Her team was Yushenia, Kovana, Romanko, Shadrina. They got first place over Nazladi, which was led by Kostaniak, Gulnar, Gerya, Kovlenskaya and Savina. So they won the team championship, and Natalia's rating performance with 4.5 out of 5 was actually at 2757. So fantastic performance for Natalia Pogonina. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.